Doc. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Dude, it's my pleasure. It's when we're in the middle of our career, we don't focus on how we can stay in the fight longer when it comes
Mm,
to like all the different modalities. I know that uh I only looked at our Thor 3 providers as like, the last ditch effort. I'm gonna do everything I can, Google what I can, and just patch this body up. And then later on in your career, you figure out like, oh shit, like I have to go to these professionals and ask for their guidance and counsel.
yeah.
And we then our scope opens up a little more, our aperture opens up a little bit more, but we're still very much focused on just like the muscles. Like, what can I do to improve the soreness? And we don't
hmm
even stop to think that maybe, we could benefit from going to chiropractor. On the outside, however, you get to learn that there's all these different modalities, and chiropractic is one of those things where it's like, dude, this can help us stay in the fight longer. And then on the outside, once we get out, it can help us continue being active. There's many modalities out there that we don't get exposed to, and I'm just so happy to have you on today to talk about what you do, man.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Like you said, guys who are in it, they're just focused on the next hit, the next raid, the next
Yep.
J set, the next doc. Just give me something to get me through. Just get me back out there with the boys. And I think part of that has to do with the time horizon of the mission.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about this more later. I think it's, let's not just jump right into that part of things just yet. But um, when you're in the job, when you're in the whole deployment rotation and you're getting ready and then you're going out and then you're coming back and resetting and training and getting the new guys back in, everything has a very short time horizon.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the outcomes that you're looking for have a short time horizon because you're just looking out that far and not much further. You're not worried about that much because, quite frankly, you might not come home from this deployment. So
Yeah.
there's an element of that where you're going into real harm's way, and you may or may not come back. So some of those long-term effects don't really stay top of mind.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's always we're looking for what can we do right now. And an NFL athlete has the time and you know the ability to take a knee, rehab, and follow every course of action as detailed in their care plan.
Yes.
For our guys, it's often enough like, what can I do right now to minimize the pain, because that's what's keeping me, my mind out of the fight, what's keeping me out of being 100% functional on the team. Let's just take care of the
hmm
pain. And then those
Yeah.
injuries evolve over time. And a prime example, I didn't know this, but when I started seeing a chiropractor, they're one of the first, that was actually the first individual that realized that my hip alignment was way off,
Mm,
completely off.
yes. Yeah. We tend to be one of the professions that looks at the body from head to toe more than many others.
Yeah.
There's some others that do. Acupuncture and massage come to mind. But a lot of times, some of the other subspecialty of what you would consider more traditional medicine, they're very complaint focused, very regional at best,
Yeah.
if not just like directly. You have a shoulder problem, we're going to look at the shoulder, the whole shoulder, and nothing but the shoulder.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but there are other things that really affect the shoulder. And so, clinicians who think like I do, and they tend to be more chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, those sorts of whole body approaches, think of complaints in terms of networks
Yeah.
instead of cogs and parts and in a wheel. It's like you're not a machine.
Yeah.
And treating a body like a machine, well, you have a front row seat to what that looks like. It's
Yeah. It
it's
never
pretty
works out
terrible.
well.
It doesn't work so well. No, no, actually doesn't. Yeah, it has some pretty negative outcomes, unfortunately. For the short term, it works pretty good. For the
Yeah.
short term, for trauma medicine, yeah, yeah, it works pretty good.
And how'd you find yourself working with our community?
Yeah, so I was really interested in joining the military for quite a while, and then chiropractic found me and just changed the course of my life. I was really beat up as a teenager, and then I got my first and second adjustment. I went from an 8 out of 10 pain down to like a 2 in a single visit. Dramatic pain relief.
Yeah.
Played a lot of sports, was really active, grew up basically on a ranch. And then, um, yeah, found chiropractic. And I was like, I want to do this. And then I found out that you could commission chiropractors since
Yeah.
Daddy Bush was in office, but there are no billets.
Yeah.
So I talked with some recruiters and they're like, hey, we could send you to osteopathic school. I was like, that's not the same thing. They're like, that's the best we got. I said, no, I want to be a chiropractor. So I went to chiropractic school determined to still work with the military and help. I wanted to, since I was little, you can ask my mom, I've always wanted to be someplace where things mattered, where it's drastic, where I could make a big difference. So, it's like,
Yeah.
I want to
That's a
help.
calling.
I want to help the guys at the tip of the spear. I want to be out there on the edge of what people know. I want to be helping the guys who are like badly hurt. Because if chiropractic could have helped a healthy kid like me that drastically, I thought to myself, imagine what this could do for someone who's genuinely sick.
Yeah. It's so true, man. It's our population. And then there's, and not to minimize anybody else in any other field, but I think that we're such a small group of individuals that have the same constantly occurring issues with whether it be shoulder, neck injuries, lower back injuries from bearing too much weight, that it gives you the ability to see, the same, being able to implement your modality, your specific interventions, and understand like, wow, okay, like if it's working for case or patient A, B, C, and D, it's probably going to help the next guy that's coming from this community.
Yes, but your guys' complaints don't present like everybody else's.
Yes, that's very true.
So you guys have neck and shoulder pains and you have all of these issues, but they don't respond to the same treatments, or they don't respond to those same treatments the same way that a general population or a civilian population would. There's a lot of overlap with law enforcement. There's a lot of overlap with, some of the ways that those guys think about and act. There's some significant differences. For instance, the toxicity you guys are exposed to compounds all of the chronic inflammation, the arthritis, all of the gut problems, sleep problems. We can get into all of that if you want to, because I want people, I want the guys listening to know that somebody, one, gives a damn. Two, I want them to know that I'm looking at what is, not what should be.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing you could ever hope for from a doctor. I strive to do that. I know I miss it sometimes, but I miss the mark. But I want to confront what is instead of what I wish it was.
Yeah.
Because then we're making decisions based off of fantasy, and that does not go well. So we have to be real about what is. And the reality of it is that operator syndrome is real. And you have multiple stacks of multiple complaints. And if you don't understand the systems and how they interact together, you're going to miss something in the shoulder diagnosis. Say somebody comes to me with shoulder pain, I'm immediately looking at their neck. I'm looking at their muscles. I'm actually looking at their gut. I'm looking at their liver or their stomach, depending on which side it is. The stomach refers to the left shoulder, the liver to the right. Hello, organs. And then if you don't have stomach issues, if you have stomach issues, I'm immediately looking downstream at what other things do you have going on? Do you have B12 deficiencies? Because you don't have the stomach acid to make the intrinsic factor to absorb the B12, and now you have neuropathy and brain fog.
Yeah, it's funny that you
at 40 years old, like what the hell?
You brought up shoulder injuries. One of the things that I keyed in on specific injury amongst a good group of my friends is we all thought we had some sort of like muscular issue with our traps. That was one of the first thing that we, you look across like what's going on, and it was this impingement. We didn't know, a lot of us didn't know what it was, and a lot of us that now have this C5, C6 fusion. That was the first thing. And it's always that pain referring down to your neck, and you're like, oh, it's my lat, it's my trap, it's my lat, my trap. We're trying to get it diagnosed and taken care of through physical therapy, through working on the muscle, through working on stretches and trigger point and all these different things. And it's because I almost equate it to being a novice of your own body, being a complete novice, disconnected with your own body. And it's funny you bring
They don't teach these things. They don't teach these things in school. They teach you how to put a condom on a banana, but they don't teach you about your own anatomy. And like, they don't teach you the different types of pain. Like, I cannot tell you the number of people who are, our age or significantly older. I ask them what type of pain. They're like, I don't know.
Mm.
You've been living inside your body for how long, and you don't know that there are at least 7 types of pain? Burning, stabbing, cold, numb, tingly. I mean, like
Yeah.
vibration. Like there's different types of sensation. You can't differentiate them. You haven't spent a lot of time with yourself.
Yeah.
You haven't been taught how to relate to your body. And compound that now, you guys have to stuff down those feelings in your muscles. There's that funny meme like, what do we do with our feelings? We stuff them in our muscles.
Yeah.
And if we feel more sad, what do? We get bigger muscles, right?
Yeah.
It's it's actually it's actually a disease called somatization. It's a psychological phenomenon. I say disease semi seriously, but you can store memories and traumas and stuff like that in your body.
Absolutely. Body keeps
You
a
absolutely
score.
can.
Vessel Vanderkolk talks about
Yeah,
it.
great ideas in
Uh,
that book. I
yeah.
disagree with some of his conclusions, but yes, great book.
Yeah.
Great book. It's at least a very good starting point. It'll lead you to other things that are really helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll tell you,
yeah,
anybody that's ever been involved in a car crash or significant impact,
yes.
from a bad PLF, from a bad jump,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just think,
Oh, jump concussions,
yeah,
opening shock, bad
yeah,
landing. Um, Even if you have to land on a reserve,
yeah,
you've got a lot less canopy under a reserve.
yeah.
A lot less. You're going to be landing a lot faster.
Yeah, and those repeated injuries that you're exposed to, when it's no wonder when I read that, I understood, like, yeah, your body does keep certain, and if you have the repeated issue, the repeated incidents, like, you store that, and then so many people are walking around having lived a life, whether you were a paratrooper or in soft, and you're
Yep.
constantly asking yourself why, whenever you're stressed or you're angry or you anxious, you have the same
Mm-hmm.
tension, the same pain in your body. It's like, well, hello, dude. When's the last time you felt like this?
Yeah. Yeah. No, interesting you'd say that. Also, one of the big things that triggers people that they don't know about or they don't know to look for are smells. But as soon as you say that, like people will be like, oh, yeah, no. Like you walk into maybe like an Indian food market and you get a whiff of those
Yep.
spices. It might take you back to
Yeah.
someplace very far away, and very vividly sometimes.
Yeah.
Just as an example, like there'll be certain smells about things. Um, so that one, the sense of smell is very tied into your memory. It's actually a top-down control on all of the other 4 senses.
Yeah.
It's something I wrote about. Actually, I wrote a book on aromatherapy,
Oh,
making
wow.
sense of aromatherapy. Yeah. So if you want to know a little bit more about how your sense of smell affects everything else, give
Yeah.
that a read. It's a quick 90 pages. I just wanted it to be concise.
Yeah.
Um,
It's one of the strongest things that connects us to our ability to recall things. Like,
yes.
it's so many of us deal with the loss of memory, the cognitive slip, where you can't remember how to get home. You can't remember where you put your notebooks and your notes
Hmm.
to work. But at the same time, that strong sense of, you smell diesel, and it immediately connects you back to that moment
Yep.
when you were
Yep.
deployed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, basically what it creates is a fast track for different things. And the more adrenaline you release at that moment, the stronger the memory becomes. So this is one of the reasons why they put people in high stress situations when they want you to really learn something.
Yeah.
That's why realistic training is so important, but that's a whole different tangent. We're
Yeah.
not even talking about that. But like the more realistic the training, the better people perform under pressure because they've actually properly learned it. And this
Yeah.
is why, like the, namby-pamby kind of like education of people in general is I think a horrible idea. Like stress people.
Yeah.
We're not just resilient. We're anti-fragile. We're designed for all sorts of stresses, things that could kill us and everything else like that. And we're designed to overcome those. To that, looping back to that idea of the body keeps the score. The body keeps the score until the next game.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. And so when you realize how you can put a period on that game, you can put a period on that sentence, and then you can wipe the score. You can do away with memories that your body has kept. You can release those. Your
Mhm.
body doesn't keep the feeling always. It'll keep the memory, but it's the feeling that we have to do away with. Otherwise, we're living in a past moment. And therapies like EMDR are
Yeah.
phenomenal at this. So that's outside of my scope of practice. That's something I benefited from so tremendously. It's eye movement,
Yep.
desensitization, and reorganization. For those who don't know, EMDR, phenomenal therapy. And it basically helps integrate your right and left side of your brain helps to you to be able to keep the memory and ditch the feeling. I think that's the best description I've ever heard for it. So I personally benefited from it tremendously. And for somebody who's looking for, some sort of therapy that works, I'd recommend giving it a shot. It can be a very intense and it can be a very unpleasant experience as you dig back into experiences that you have wanted to forget. Your body has put up a firewall to keep you from getting back into. So, fair warning, it's intense, but I'd say it's good. I'd say it's really good. The fruits of it are really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I second that. It's one of the best therapies I've done and benefited greatly from it. And when we look at, going back to, your scope in chiropractic practice, the science and the healing wasn't always well understood, and it wasn't always well respected. When I look
that's
back,
for sure.
yeah, talking to some of the older generation guys and that are now getting the benefit as well, because it's not just about our current veterans, our current GWAT veterans. If we talking to some of our Gulf War, some of our older veterans out there, they're getting this right now, and they're seeing a lot of benefits. So it's not a thing of like, oh, you're too late. It's you're too fragile these days. It's something that is benefiting a lot of people. And how do you combat that? Those ideas that, I know that at first when I went back to see a chiropractor regularly, even I still had some of those like, man, like, I don't know, is this going to be the right thing? Like, how do you combat the old stigma?
With a track record of results, quite frankly. The best way to evaluate any kind of therapy is, well, does it work? Because the theory could sound completely woo.
Yeah.
Or it could make perfect sense. But if the rubber doesn't meet the road, don't go. If it doesn't get the results you're looking for, don't do it. But if it does, maybe give it a shot. And so the thing that has saved chiropractic from, different slandering and misrepresentations from mainly the mainstream medical community, they don't like us very much. It's gotten a lot better, I'll say. It has gotten tremendously better. 20, 30 years ago, 30 years ago, almost to the date, we won a lawsuit for defamation, where we were being corralled and labeled as quacks with the aim to absolutely destroy the chiropractic profession. We won that lawsuit and got some relief. But that was just 30 years ago, and people have long memories. And how they were taught as children makes a difference for how they see us now. That being said, things are now much better, and I have a lot of colleagues, even some MDs, some orthos, some neuros who I talk to, and they're like, yeah, so explain to me what the heck you do. And I explained it to them briefly, and they're like, oh, that's cool. All right, awesome. Let me send you some patients. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
Let me help them, and I'll send them right back to you. And so just building that good relationship and being able to clearly explain what we do is really helpful. And what that comes down to is, if I had to, in plain English, just describe what chiropractic does, the adjustment particularly helps joints move properly and gets rid of restrictions. What happens when you can have little ones that'll pop for you and me. Like we just, turn our head, something goes pop. Okay, cool. And by the way, nothing pops or cracks, nothing breaks. It's just joint fluid getting sucked across the joint real quick. It becomes a gas briefly and then liquid again. It's called cavitation. Makes a pop noise. It's fun. That's that. It's like popping your knuckles. Same process in your spine. So super safe.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. So what we do is joints that don't move correctly, they inflame.
Yeah.
That irritates nerves. Irritated nerves cause pain, but also tighten muscles. Tight muscles lock up joints. Locked up joints irritate nerves, and round and around it goes. And so the adjustment, along with some of the other things I do, can really help to release that, get pain relief, and mostly get the inflammation off of the nerve. That's what I care about the most.
Yeah. That's a big issue with the community right now is degenerative
disc disease.
And the issues that we have with nerve bundles getting smushed. And
yes,
so many individuals, whether it's in your lower lumbar, your neck, guys are getting fusions and disc replacements. And I know I'm in that camp. My biggest thing was I still go in and get manipulated. I still get see my chiropractor here in the Prattville area. And it's because
That's awesome.
I work out and it never fails. If I don't warm up, I don't do something right, I will aggravate that. But I know
Sure.
now that I can get a small adjustment and be back in fighting shape. It's not a muscle thing. But how do we educate the general public to understand that, hey, look, this can help you with these nerve bundles getting, pinched, getting,
Yeah.
how do we generate and how do we be able to tell people that, hey, you don't have to be scared of the noise. You don't have to be scared of the
Right.
manipulation. This will help you.
Yeah. I'd say you can still be scared and it's worth it. Do it scared.
Yeah.
People get surgery. They're not excited about the scalpel.
No, not at
They'll
all.
go under anesthesia and they're not excited about the needle, but they perceive that it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's less to focus on, well, don't worry about the pop, don't worry about the crunch. Like, we can tell them that till they're blue in the face, but it's much better to tell them, hey, this is why it's worth it. Chiropractic is not just good at relieving pain. It's good at restoring function. It's good at taking pressure and irritation off of nerves. Irritated nerves then communicate well. Your
Yeah.
nervous system is command and control for your entire body. And if you have a comms channel that goes down with a whole unit attached to that's on that freak, and that freak goes down, that unit is now doing its own thing. It can't talk with CNC.
Yeah.
So my job as a chiropractor is just to restore command and control. Then the unit can figure things out the way it's supposed to. I don't actually fix the body. I restore communication.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and then that allows the body to operate as well as it possibly can. Now, if you're living a trailer park lifestyle and you're eating at QT all the time, you're eating gas station food, and you're dipping all the time, and you're drinking alcohol every time you get a chance, and, that lifestyle is going to wear on you, and that's going to limit the amount of health you can express. But you can still benefit from chiropractic. On the flip side, if you're, doing like Nick Bear or some of the other guys out there and just like elite level athlete kind of stuff, Mark Sisson comes to mind, and you get adjusted, you can still benefit because the spine is like your breaker box.
Yeah.
If you want to think about it, you can go replace light bulbs all you want, but until you turn the power back on, it's going to be tricky to get all the lights in the house on.
Yeah. Can you take us through some of the case studies, some of the work, which shouldn't say case study, but some of the work you've been doing with some individuals?
Yeah.
I find it fascinating how easy it is to start addressing these issues and get somebody on the right track for recovery.
Absolutely. So the beautiful thing is the worse off someone is, oftentimes the easier it is to see a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So for people who have a lot of pain, who've had a lot of pain for a long time, but who stay active, they usually get some really cool results really quickly, which fits that envelope that you guys find yourselves in. So, there are particularly, I think I sent you over like 4 little stories.
Yeah.
And I've got more I can share, but Kerry McAllister, good friend of mine, retired out of third group, just a stand-up dude. He invited me to come down to the Triple G Ranch down in Goliad. His friend David Crossland puts on a soft hunt every December, which is just super cool. They bring guys together for fellowship and hunting and just kind of have them, work together as a team, get back in that environment with the guys. But Kerry calls me. He's benefited from my care before through the Green Beret Foundation. I made a donation in kind for care and said, just send me the guys. I'll take care of them.
Nice.
And that was really cool. Kerry originally came to me July of last year, I think, somewhere in there. And he could barely walk with a cane.
Oof.
And so, he was not very operational when he got out. Within 3 visits, he hung the cane up on my wall.
Wow.
He didn't need it so much anymore. Let's see. John Arroyo was the first one the Green Beret Foundation sent to me. And he had been shot in April of 14 on Fort Hood. Yeah. Fort Cavazos, I don't know which name we're using. I like to call it Fort Hood. I like the old names personally. Fort Hood is good with me. Fort Bragg. Keep the history. Keep the history. Okay. That's a different tangent. But anyway, he was on Fort Hood coming back, and another soldier lost his mind and went on a shooting spree, and he was his first victim. And he took a 45 through the voice box, through the throat. The bullet lodged in his brachial plexus, which is this bunch of nerves that comes down off of your neck is in charge of your hand, your arms, your shoulder, all of that.
Yeah.
He barely made it. He survived. He went back, forgave his attacker, went through a whole spiritual journey of being able to like do that. And, you know, it brought him a lot closer to God. But when he came to see me, I want to say this was also about that same time frame. All he could do was barely wiggle his thumb. He used his arm basically like a paperweight. He had to lift it with his other arm. Now he's got a tricep. He's got that horseshoe back on the back of his arm. He can hold a microphone with his hand. He doesn't have perfect function back, but he can do most everything he wants to do with that hand now. He's giving speeches. And so, yeah, if you want to check him out, John M. Arroyo. Cool dude. Cool dude.
Remarkable, man. We got to pause. We got to pause on that. That is, yeah, you're giving somebody not only their life back, but that's allowing them to continue on their mission.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, that's unheard of. And in this world, we tend to think like, well, if I still have my, I'll be okay.
Right.
Miracle.
Yeah.
Man.
I haven't done that.
If you can get it back.
The results of what God can do.
Or at least most of it back.
And
I saw that thumb wiggle. I'm like, we're still connected.
Like
it's
that.
like you see that bulb flicker, you're like, we still have juice. If nothing had moved, it probably wouldn't have been nearly as good of an outcome.
Yeah.
But I also look at that and I was like, this is the first case they sent me. I'm like, oh, you guys are jokers. All right. Okay. Let's get to work. Like we got work to do. So it probably took about 2 months of really focused care. And if we can, like, there's a video, if you go back in my reels about it's back there. Well, I'll see if I can repost it. So it's more, if somebody's watching this, you can find it closely on my page.
Yeah, we'll pause here.
Yeah.
We'll put it on. I'll have the video playing right here between us.
That'd be great. I have a little sequence of him going, well, you know, this is how hard I could lift it. And he's like, whoa. And like, it surprises him. Like he gets down on the table. I treat him. He gets up off the table, immediate neurological change.
Wow.
If the joints move correctly, the nerves are less inflamed, the muscles loosen up, function, movement is restored, pain goes down, and then your connection with your organs improves, which has a lot of really far-reaching implications.
Dang. That's just that's miracle.
It was absolutely, you know, and to God be the glory with that. Like I get to participate in miracles every single day.
Yeah.
Let's see, I've got another one. I got Lance. He's out of 19th group. He's come in to me with vertigo, dizziness, reflux, back spasms, all of that stuff. That he loves to golf.
Yeah.
And you can't golf very well when you're dizzy, bending forward to try and get the ball. When your back is spazzing all the time.
Nope.
When you have like some crazy reflux. Not very good.
Yeah, and the vestibular issues, that is something that guys, I'm talking to a lot of individuals, they don't even want to admit it or bring it up.
Right.
They don't want to say, I lose balance, I fall down. And it has a lot to do with that I don't have sovereignty over my own body. I don't have control. I don't want to admit this. Like, but
and feeling out of control is something you guys don't like very much at all.
Absolutely. But that is a huge canary that it's in the coal mine and would allow a physician, allow a provider such as yourself to realize like, oh shit, there's something big going on here. Yeah. So that's one thing we have to normalize within every veteran. If you've been suffering with this is a big thing. And more and more people are, you know, you'll be surprised what people are willing to be vulnerable about when you get them in a peer-to-peer support group and they start talking. Right. If you're losing balance, and I get it, having this idea of like, I'm only in my 30s, only in my 40s, this is your chance to get help today. This is your chance to speak up, talk with somebody, because that's a huge sign that there's something wrong up here.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of like soft guys who've been through blast concussions, you know, more whiplash events than we could even count. Let's be honest. Everything from smacking your nods on a low door frame to getting in and out of the Humvee, tripping and falling, smacking your head, you know, danger close, artillery strikes, you know, and all those concussive blasts. You know, you can get concussed without hitting your head.
Yes.
If your chest takes a sufficient hit, the air in your lungs goes up and smacks you in the roof of your mouth and concusses you.
Yep.
How about that? And then also when you have a head rotation, your brainstem has a consistency of celery and your brain has a consistency of mozzarella cheese. And then you end up with this phenomenon where the brainstem goes whoop,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
rather this goes like this around the brainstem, and you end up with neuronal shearing. And then you end up being triggered. You end up with massive emotional swings. You're super happy to like super depressed, super irritable, whatever you're feeling, it's extreme.
Yes.
And that's because your midbrain, which is responsible for dopamine, a lot of your fight or flight system, all sorts of other things, is just untethered. And it doesn't have the control from the prefrontal cortex saying, wait, I wouldn't do that shit if I was you.
Yeah.
It doesn't have those breaks because the nerves between the prefrontal cortex, that rational, mature part of your brain, and your midbrain, which is just the pure just aggression and fight part of your brain, they're not connected so well anymore. So you're not as mature anymore. And then people get all anxious and they're like, who am I? What's going on? And you see that not just with veterans, not just with soft dudes. You see that also with people who've been in very, very severe car accidents where their head's been like whipped back and forth really badly. So that's where I first came across that. And then I saw it in vets. I'm like, I know exactly. This is neuronal shearing. This is midbrain neuronal shearing. I know exactly what this is. And just helping somebody make sense of that is huge. But let's get back to the vestibular issue.
Yeah.
Your balance comes from your ankles, your hips, your shoulders, and then your brainstem right up here. And then last of all, your vestibular system. It also comes from your eyes. So all of those things work together. If you can't feel your ankles, you can't balance. If you can't compensate with your hips, your ankles will try and compensate, and then your body will wait for your hips to compensate, and they won't. And then you won't do the arm flail, which is the third one. If your ankles try and compensate, then your hips shift over, then your arms flail, and if those fail, then you fall over. But have you heard of Bell's palsy, where like your face, like right? Okay. So that comes off, that nerve root is right here on your brainstem, right about your C1. And if the nerve going up and around the back of your head over here, going towards your face, gets too cold or gets too irritated, then it looks like you've had a stroke.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The nerve that comes off your brainstem right there that goes to your vestibular system, your balance and internal like up, down, spinning sensation. Yeah, that nerve runs right along the base of your skull too. And if it gets too cold or irritated or takes a hit, or you're sitting there with your head crimped up like this because your head's forward because you're carrying nods without counterweights, or you're stuck down in a little frickin' Humvee that's not designed to carry, headgear, or you're just tall and you have all of those things.
Yeah.
Or you head whips forward because you have opening shock, you're doing like a halo jump or something. I could go on. Yeah, that can get irritated, and you can end up with vestibular issues that are not actually a problem with your inner ear. Because it's the wiring between the organ, the inner ear, and your brainstem, which is in charge of making heads or tails of the information coming in. So it's like there's a lot of static on the frequency where you're trying to talk with your balance system. Now, things that will make that worse are downers, muscle relaxers, CNS depressants, muscle relaxers especially. The major one I'm thinking as far as Neurontin. What's that one called? There's another name for that drug. I'm blanking. But basically anything that's a downer. This is why alcohol affects your vestibular system as much as it does. It also affects your cerebellum very much. So coordination goes down tremendously. That's why they make you walk a line when they try and determine if you're drunk. They're checking your coordination. But yeah, basically anything that's a downer will really affect those negatively. And so once people have those, they have a little bit of that running around in the background that they're able to compensate for. And then they take a medication for pain for their knee or pain for their shoulder. And then all of a sudden they're dizzy. Well, where did the dizziness come from? The dizziness already existed.
Yeah.
And this was just like the water came down and now you saw the rocks that were there already. And when the water's high and your health is high, you can get on just fine. But as soon as that water comes down, that becomes a big problem. So it doesn't have to be your inner ear.
Yeah. That is so awesome. And to think just how many times like these things are being diagnosed and like, wow.
Yeah.
Puts, so if you're listening out there and you've experienced any of these issues, think of your entire career. Think of your entire time in the military. Think of everything you've dealt with. Now, when we're looking at these diagnoses, when we're looking at all these difficult things that we may have experienced, like, where do we begin? Where's the best place to begin to start getting back on the road of getting healthy? And where does chiropractic, like, where does it fall in line with where we should go first?
That is a great question. So I think the first thing to realize is that if you're still in, the needs of the service and the needs of the mission and the guys on your right and your left take priority over your personal health. And as soon as you get out, that changes. I mentioned the time horizon at the beginning.
Yeah.
The time horizon while you're in, and I'm not going to argue with this. If you want to get a surgery or a shot or something else like that, just get me back in the fight. The FNG is not ready to take my place. If he goes out tonight, people die. That's real sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, they're not ready to take your spot. I'm not going to argue with you. Do what you got to keep your brothers in arms safe. Okay? Full stop. Once you get out, I need you to realize that that time horizon switches. Now you're back in that pro athlete spot where we talked about. Now you have the time. You can take a knee. You can follow the details of the plan. You can slow down your training. Nobody's going to die. You're out. Okay? You still need purpose. You still need people who depend on you, but that time horizon is much longer. You're now looking for performance over time instead of performance for right now. So I think that is the most important switch to flip in the mind of the individual that's trying to heal.
Yeah.
Is giving themselves now the permission and the time to go do the things they need to in order to heal. It's not just about the quick fix anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. Number two would be chiropractic. Because your nervous system has to drive this meat mech suit that you've been given to navigate through the world right now. And it runs on less than the voltage of a 9-volt battery. It's just absolutely miraculous that you can even go through things. It's so cool. But you need command and control. The same way that you needed clear comms when you're at whatever unit you were at and you're fulfilling those roles, you need to make sure you were tied into the other supporting elements. If your body is disconnected, if it doesn't have clear comms, it's, the stomach can't support the liver can't support the gut can't support the brain. You need all of those supporting elements to work together. It's a whole package that has to work together. And so in the same way, if you try to go do a hit without air cover, you can expect your health results not to work so well if your organs aren't coordinated. Same stuff. We just got to translate here. And chiropractic helps you get that clear communication between brain, organs, and body. If you want to help find a good chiropractor, for most veterans, I'd recommend starting at a sports chiropractor. What they do is most similar to treating the types of injuries that I found, like the overlap there is the greatest. There's still going to be some things if they've never treated veterans or, guys with operator syndrome before. That's where I think you're going to find your most overlap.
Yeah.
They're going to be to the point. I've found them, generally speaking, to be very practical, and they're going to be willing to recommend some other things outside of just chiropractic. Things like traction, which I want to talk about in just a moment. There are some, if you don't mind, let's find a way to link some things for traction devices that people can get. It's super, super helpful.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that my friend immediately, when I was talking to him about having you on, he's like, talk about traction.
Yes.
I've known about it because it's one of the first things that, all the older senior paratroopers, like your platoon sergeants and some of the squad leaders, were going to the med shed to do.
Yes. And I want to teach a really simple, really easy way to do that.
Yeah.
It's about 85-90% as effective as decompression, and it's way cheaper. So let's say you do have a disc issue. Let's say you have a C5, C6 issue. Those nerve roots that come out of your neck right over here at C5, 6, they're in charge of a lot of your rhomboids, your delts, your rotator cuff, your pecs, to an extent. The whole shoulder girdle, right, is basically run right off of there. And your ability to hold good posture, if your head goes forward, it really strains that part of your neck. You want to get your head back over your shoulders again. Because if you don't, not only will that be affected, but also this area right over here at the top of your neck where your brainstem hangs out, your lower brainstem. That's going to have implications for your sense of taste, your face, your jaw tightness, sinus issues, your vagus nerve and everything that goes to as far as your gut, your organs function, your trap tightness, your balance. What haven't I mentioned? Your ability to swallow, reflux, your ability to sleep, your ability to calm down, because your reticular activating system is over there, which is in charge of paying attention to all the noises around you and detecting threat versus non-threat. So if you have trouble calming down in a new location, your RAS is in overdrive. That's right up here. You need to get that looked at. But yeah, traction. So first thing, you have time. Second thing, get to a chiropractor, get that clear communication going. Sports chiropractor preferred. If you don't have anybody, some chiropractic is better than none. The other thing, if it's not effective for you with chiropractic, don't be afraid to walk away. Give it a little bit of time. If it's not effective for you, if the rubber doesn't meet the road, get out. And you can tell them I said so. They can give me an angry phone call, and I will happily take that call, okay? Third thing on chiropractic, if you're not sure where to go and you need someone you trust, give me a call. I will find out where you are. I will go look up other chiropractic options in the area and see if I can guide you to an office that's completely free of charge. That's the least I can do. At least help you find a good office, okay? Open offer. Traction. Traction is one of the cheapest, easiest ways to help rehab discs and create space in the spine. If your discs are degenerated, if they are, desiccated, that's a fancy word for dried out, so they'll show up darker than the other ones. If you've ever seen an MRI, they show you bright disc, bright disc, bright disc, dark disc. The dark one doesn't have a lot of water in it, so it doesn't show up on MRI as well, and so it's dehydrated. Part of the reasons why it's dehydrated is that muscle tightness that goes with the joint inflammation that goes with, all of that, it's just locked down. And so what you want to do is you want to provide some traction. So you lay back over this device.
Yeah.
And you lay back over this device and you pump up a little air pillow that's either under your neck or under your low back or both, depending on where your injuries are. And it just helps to gently pull your head away from your body, basically over the top of this gentle arch. And you're in control of it, so you can decide how intense it is. Low intensity is best. Find that out at your peril. 1 or 2 out of 10. I know this community tends to go hard in the paint. They love to go at it more is better.
Yes.
Just, anything to get me. No, bad. Okay. 1 to 2 out of 10 tops, man. I'm telling you, we're stretching ligaments, discs, joint capsules. If you piss them off, they will tell you about it for the next 24 to 48 hours, and you will not like what they have to say. Okay, so be gentle. Be gentle. Those are some of the innermost structures in your spine. It's very important to be gentle. And you do that for about 10 minutes at a 1 to 2 intensity, very low. And then you ice for 10 minutes afterwards. If you want to make it more effective, put a heating pad on it for 10 minutes, traction for 10 minutes, ice for 10 minutes. You don't have to do the heat, but boy, do you have to do the cold. If you don't calm that down after you do the traction, you're going to find out.
You're going to feel it.
I will not even have to say I told you so. So just fair warning, make your decisions, but know that I'm going to laugh at you if you tell me I didn't do the cold afterwards and I hurt now. We'll go get an ice pack. Yeah. So there you go. Fair disclosure there. So know that you have time, get a chiropractor, traction. If traction doesn't work, decompression is the next best option. There's a computer that listens to the tension and the spasms that your body gets into and releases the tension if you get into a spasm, so it decreases the intensity automatically for you. And so it's that extra 5-10% more effective than traction, which is just by feel of the person who's doing it, right? So decompression is more effective. And so if you've tried traction, the devices run somewhere between $120 and $350. So as far as getting care for your spine, it's super effective. You can do it every single day. You can do it twice a day if you do it morning and evening. If you want to get better faster. Super cheap, especially when you stretch it out across 60, 120 treatments tops, right, in 2 months. 2 a day for 60 days. It'd be a completely different person. After that, dude, stretch.
Yeah. Get
the sugar out of your diet as much as you can. Sugar is sometimes harder to quit, though, than heroin. I'm serious about that. From an addiction perspective, sugar is harder.
Yeah.
And, when you're used to running on adrenaline and cortisol and the sugar pop gives you an adrenaline high, it's a feeling you're used to having. And so, it might be hard to quit. Get rid of a lot of that fat and protein are your friends. Steak, butter. You can go full carnivore if you want. Up to you. There are other ways of doing it, but that's a good way. But less sugar, less fried food for sure. I think we can all agree is a really, really good step forward. And I'd say make sure you tie into some aspect of faith.
Yeah. My body and spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mind, body, spirit. What I tell people is if you're doubting it, Listen, faith tells you how to interpret what the things that happen to you mean.
Yeah.
If you don't know what it means, you won't know how to relate to it. And faith gives you that. They say, okay, here's a worldview where Christ is king and evil is in the world. And this is how you should live. And this is what you should make of these things. And this is how you should act. So first off, it lessens the decision fatigue you have to face, because you already have a way to do it. And then the other thing is, it doesn't leave you alone in the darkness against the forces of evil, which you don't have to be particularly spiritually attuned to find, especially in 2024, heading into 2025. You don't have to be particularly aware of the spiritual world to know that there's evil afoot.
Yeah.
You guys have probably seen it closer than many of us could imagine. Probably don't want to talk about it. Not going to press you for it.
I think
But
it's one of the most important things to do is like, yeah, we advocate for every modality, and I want everybody to get better, to walk into that office with the doctor, psychiatrist, counselor, peer-to-peer support advocate, wherever you go. But the last office that only you can do, the only place that, I can't be there with you unless you are willing to drive up here, and I'll take you to my church. But it's your journey. You got to come to it.
Yeah.
It's you have to come to that understanding that you need to connect with that part of your life. And it's more impactful when you do it, when you make that decision, when you come to that moment. And I will tell you, it was the greatest thing, having that last pillar, left to be worked on. And I work on it every single day, and every Sunday I get to go, or Saturday, because I'm Catholic and sometimes I do Catholic mass.
There you go.
Saturday. But I think it's important for all of us to be willing to build that pillar up. And I get it. I was on the other side of it for a long time. I didn't want to believe that I had that much power and had that much influence in my life. But where I'm at today, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the work that I put into building that other pillar. And go ahead.
Let's, again, for anybody who's still on the fence, think about it this way. You don't want to be alone. You're used to, especially SF guys, you guys hunt in wolf packs. You hunt in ODAs. 12 of you guys, you're going out, you're doing stuff. If you're by yourself in the spiritual world, that is, first off, a really uncomfortable feeling. And second off, it's a worldview that says there are no teams of good guys. You've dedicated your life to being one of the good guys. Well, there's a spiritual war raging right now.
Yep.
And the call has never been stronger. The need has never, well, not never, but hey, the need is great.
Yeah.
Step up, man. There are a whole line of saints that go before you. If you're in you have that thin green line, the thin blue line, like however you want to think about it, like it's there and you're needed. And someone else is looking at you and is going to be inspired by you the same way that you put a drop in a pool and it ripples outward. You put evil into the world, it ripples outward. You put good into the world, it ripples outward. At least don't spread the darkness. At least don't spread it. But if you want to take care of yourself, you want to be on a team of good guys, you want to take the fight to the next level, it's on the spiritual plane. And if you're disconnected from that, you're disconnected from the most important source of meaning and the way to be able to interpret what's happening in the world around you, to be able to have a guide for how to navigate your decisions. And you're not going to be aimless. You're going to actually have a clear point to navigate towards. Everybody knows what it's like to be lost at night in land nav.
Yeah.
That's a terrible feeling, especially when there's a time pressure. Well, there is a time pressure. You're going to die one day. And if you're still lost in the middle of the night while you're hiking, it sucks, dude. I don't want that for you. I want you to at least have a direction and be on your way to a point.
Yeah. That's a great
You're going to live better between now and then. It's land nav for the soul.
Yeah. It truly
land
is.
nav for the soul. And without that point, without Christ and without heaven to aim at, are you going to do it perfectly? No. Are you going to run into other people who give you bad advice? Yeah, careful who you listen to. Hey, man, just cut down this easy road.
And now you're roadkill, and you got
candidate. What's that over there?
It's so true.
Don't find yourself there.
Yeah.
Don't find yourself there. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say to people. And so like personally, I'm Eastern Orthodox Christian, so very much in that same vein as the Catholic Church there. Find yourself something that is deeply rooted, something that goes back to the beginning, something that celebrates beauty
Mm-hmm.
and manhood, like right manly men, like it's needed. So yeah, I'd say other than that, read Operator Syndrome.
Yes. So it'll be
I've
a
got it
link
on the shelf
to,
here behind me.
yeah,
Yes.
there'll be a link
Dr.
to
Chris's
Chris's
work
book.
is groundbreaking. If you want to understand the constellation of problems that you didn't even realize were connected, do it.
Yeah.
And I also made a protocol specifically for some of the issues I've seen from my GWAT veterans. And so I want to make that available to people as well as a supplement stack to particularly help with inflammation, histamine levels, sleeplessness, irritability, brain fog, all of those sorts of fun things.
Yeah, before we
So
close it out, let's dive into
yeah,
that. Let's dive into that protocol, man.
sure. Absolutely. So what makes this one different is that as I was treating the guys that I've had the honor of taking care of, either down at the Triple G Ranch or, up here through the Green Beret Foundation, what I found is that the histamine levels were one of the things that kept recurring.
Mm.
Whether or not it's, gunshot residue exposure, burn pit exposure, the frickin' sand that gets into absolutely everything. I'm sure you guys can probably feel it in your teeth while I'm talking about it. There's all of these things, blast exposures, they keep coming back to a similar response from the immune system through a particular immune protein called IgE. And you find IgE, especially with certain types of allergic responses. So it's big on the lungs, which are also affected by senses of grief. So there's your tie into the grief and loss, the emotional world, the spiritual world there. And those affect the lungs pretty drastically. And so if you have high levels of IgE, then your mast cells activate. And mast cells are a very old, very non-specific part of the immune system. And they just secrete histamine all over the place.
Hmm.
Histamine leads to sleeplessness, irritability, like a weird sort of like hyperness. You ever seen someone take Benadryl and just be bouncing off the walls? That's because they had an inverse response to histamine. That's like a really extreme example of what high histamine levels will do on the short term. But now map that out over a long time. So histamine over a short term is like Benadryl, like somebody's had a weird response to Benadryl and now they don't. Yeah. But it also leads to like some really sharp aches and pains. They just don't go away with massage or sometimes even adjustments. So one of the things I address in that protocol is with getting that histamine level down. One of the last linchpins there for histamine is vets drink a lot, man.
Yeah.
And there is one enzyme to degrade both alcohol and histamine. It's called diamine oxidase. You can supplement it, so it's in the stack. But if you drink a lot of alcohol, then the enzyme switches focus and takes care of the ethanol first.
Mm.
And the histamine stacks up and stacks up and stacks up and inflames more and more and more and more stuff. And so what you need is, even if you don't cut back on your drinking, which I totally recommend, by the way, at least cut back on it. Don't drink when you're down. Don't drink alone. Coming from an alcoholic family, those are my rules for myself. They work pretty well. But yeah, supplement the DAO. That'll help you break down the histamine as well as the alcohol. If you want to get drunk, take the DAO afterwards, because otherwise it'll break down the alcohol and it'll be very expensive. Yeah. Just from a practical perspective here, if you want to get drunk, take the DAO afterwards. If you want to be safe that night and you want to have a little bit to drink, okay, I need to be careful what advice I'm giving here.
Allegedly. Always use
Allegedly. Okay, and the other one is quercetin. So quercetin is really interesting because it helps also drop down histamine levels, but it helps inhibit something called myostatin. Myostatin increases as you get old, but it also increases with histamine levels, and it keeps you from building muscle. That's a problem, because once you cross about 35, you start losing about 1% of your muscle mass if you're healthy, 3% per year if you're unhealthy. And your muscle mass determines how well you can survive major diseases. There's all sorts of fun stuff going through the veteran community, especially based off of exposure, stresses, grief, whole constellation of things you guys are dealing with, and certain things we can or cannot talk about Don't know your comfort level on that one. That might be another conversation, but yes. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of detoxing things there, and then things to help. Magnesium threonate, which particularly goes across the blood-brain barrier to the brain and helps with relaxation, anxiety, sleep, focus. So that's all in there.
Nice.
And I put it together specifically for guys who come back from the GWAT. It'll help other guys, especially non-vets, because they were exposed to a lot of toxic stuff similarly.
Nice. And where can they go to get this protocol?
So I actually have a link directly to the protocol. But then if you visit my Full Scripts dispensary, you can do that there. I don't know how we can link that best, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah, it'll be on the description.
There you go. Yeah, check it out in the description. Or if you go to my story highlights on my profile and click on either veterans, it's in there, or in protocols, it's in there as well. You can just follow that link and it'll take you there and you can order it. It ships directly to your house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dr. Christian, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate what you're doing for not only the soft community, but for all the veterans you're helping. It's imperative that we start taking control of our health. I know it can be hard. I know it can be, overwhelming. And yeah, you're dealing with a sense of the unknown. Well, the pain and the issues are the known factor. What if I go get help and I open up a whole can of worms? Like, well, yeah, that's one possibility. Or you go get help and you start realizing that these issues can be, addressed really fast. And oftentimes you can be free of pain within 1 or 2 visits. So please, if you're listening to this episode and you haven't gotten help, be willing to go get help today, whether it's going to the VA or checking out Dr. Christian Nelson at his clinic, or just hitting him up and asking him for advice on who to go and where to start.
Happy to help.
Thank you for being here. And where's your website one more time?
You can visit keller-chiro.com, or you can hit me up on YouTube or Instagram at Advocate Wellness TX, like the state of Texas.
Perfect. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for visiting. And one more time, please go give us a follow, give us a like, give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Head on over to Instagram and connect. Yes, you did it. You did it. I finally turned mine off because I figured out how to do it. But yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, my goodness.
Yes. Anytime you do the thumbs up, it'll pop up. If you snap and point. Thank you, Apple, for having those awesome features.
Yeah, something like that.
I love those. Oh, man, it's a great way to end. That was perfect.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
To all y'all listening, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to give us a like and a follow on our social media and Doc's social media as well. I really appreciate you guys, all the likes, shares, and man, we are growing. We're up at 14 something. I'm blessed. I'm absolutely grateful for the inbox questions, the way we're building this community. I know oftentimes you can tune into the Instagram and just laugh at the hilarity that goes on through my post, which I always like to say, you come in for the poop and cum jokes and you stay for the mental health. And that's how it's always going to be, because damn it, I remember what it was like being in the team room and going through some hard shit. So if you're struggling today, just know that this too shall pass, and we'll be back here with another episode next week. Till then, take care.